Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Oumar Dieng. He is a resilience coach and looks at helping business people look at what their goals are and how to best achieve their goals, especially when they're in the process of a change in their lives. So, Oumar, please introduce yourself a little bit about telling us about who you are, how you came about being here and in the US and in Minnesota. So I'm so happy to find another Minnesotan
Yeah, absolutely.
and how you got into coaching. I think it's fascinating. So please share your story about coaching.
Great. Well, thank you for having me on the podcast, Lois. I really appreciate it. I got into coaching by accident. The first client I had was an unpaid client. Actually, it was a coworker that approached me based on some strategies that I applied to my own personal growth, my own career growth, that she noticed that were getting me results. And she, specifically, she noticed that I was very visible in the company, even though I just had a basic professional, lower level professional job. And but I was very visible in the company, and I could talk to people in our board or our leadership of the company, as well as the janitor that's walking around the grounds. But anyway, because of that visibility and some of the things that I did, I managed to really grow very quickly in the company that I was working on at the time. So she approached me and asked to have lunch one day, and we connected, and I just listened to her for the most part, and listened to her aspirations and her goals and what she wanted to do. And from there, I shared some things that she could do and implement. And to my amazement, she actually did take those things and put them into action. And within about 3 months or so, she not only got a new job within the company, but a higher level job, and was able to propel her career to the next level just by taking those pieces of advice that I had given her.
That's it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what coaching can do when you can really look at what a person's goals are and when they're able to take action, because sometimes we're limited by people's willingness to take action. I want to just go back for a moment, Oumar, to resilience. You talk about resilience, but you've had life experience that has caused you to really learn what resilience is all about. Could you share a little bit about how you that came about and how you've developed that as part of your coaching?
Yeah, that's right. I when I was younger, when I was 16 years old, I at the time I lived in West Africa, in a country called Mauritania. We had a group of people come to our house with weapons, machetes, and makeshift weapons, and they were looking to knock down and tear down the door and walk into our home. This was as a result of some conflicts between people of Senegalese descent, which my family was of, and people of in Mauritania, really Mauritanians. And As a result of that event, they really wanted to get into the house, and I managed to talk them down, my sister and I, by speaking the local language and convincing them that no, there are no Senegalese people who actually live in this house, that we are all Mauritanians, which actually we were. I was born and raised in Mauritania up to a certain point in my life. But anyway, long story short, we managed to convince them to walk away. So this was a mob of people ready to kill us. And I realized at the time that had they made it through the door, they would have not only killed us all, but they would have also killed some of our neighbors who had sought refuge in our home because their homes were being looted and burned down. And because they didn't speak the local language, they looked very, very Senegalese, as opposed to my sister and I, who wore the national attire and spoke the language very well. That moment really was a defining moment in my life. Not only because of what happened and the decisions that I had to make to survive, but also the fact that I ended up in a refugee camp where I spent a little over a week in that camp, where somehow my family and I got separated in the midst of trying to flee the country, and I ended up in that camp. And when I look back, some of the things that helped me not only survive that moment, that initial moment when they knocked on the door, but also surviving the time that I spent in the camp and eventually leaving the country, had to do with staying positive and being able to tap into some core ideas of staying resilient and being resilient to be able to move forward and survive the next day.
So, when you talk about resilience, do you have a process that you walk people through in order to achieve resilience, or how do you go about that, Umar?
Yeah, there's actually five core steps that I believe lead to not just resilience but long lasting resilience. Now, the good news is that we all in our lives have moments when we are taught resilience. If you even look back to the moment a child is born and you watch how quickly they grow between age 0 to 6 months or even to a year, so many things happen in between that young child's life, from learning to getting their first teeth and their learning to walk, taking a fall, and of course being challenged by disease and illnesses. So if you take that example and look at someone's life, I would say the first step you look at when you try to build resilience or to be more conscious of your own resilience, you have to learn those. You have to look back at those life lessons that may appear small on the onset if you look back, but all along they have been preparing you for that big difficult challenge and that big moment that would happen in your life. So the first time you fell off a tree, or the first time you got your first heartbreak, maybe in high school or primary school, and so on and so forth, divorce maybe, or the first time you lost someone you loved, all those, what I would call those small micro resilience events, are actually preparing you to be stronger and to be more resilient. And so that's the first step I would say, is that you have to realize, and once you're conscious of that fact, of that, wait a minute, I have survived dozens and dozens of events. I am resilient by nature. We just don't realize when something bad happens to us. We don't realize how strong we really are but when you think back, it gives you that realization, hence that power, to that willingness to face whatever your challenge is. So that's what I would say is the first step to being more resilient.
The first step is to realize you have something internal to draw on because you've had experience, your unconscious mind, so to speak, has records of how you've been able to sustain and overcome. What would be the second?
Yeah, the second one is to use what I would call anchor memories. We all know what a memory is. It's you're recalling something that happened in your either recent past or maybe even a longer term past. But an anchor memory is looking back at a specific memory, something that happened in your life that's so powerful and so emotionally charged that it's a memory that stands on its own as a defining memory in your life. So if I give you an example, when my father died in 1985, when I was very young, when I was 11 years old at the time. And one of the memories that I had of him was to just that feeling of being loved and uh, being um, being trusted and feeling safe that I would have when he was off of work on Saturday or Sunday mornings, and I sat next to him and he was reading his books, his comic books. He loved comic books. These are comic books geared to an older demographic. But anyway, I loved the fact that I would sit next to him and we would spend half an hour to an hour and just reading through this comic strip. And that's one of my many anchor memories. So whenever I find myself in life that I am facing a challenge that's tied to negative emotions or emotions that I know will be counterproductive to the goals that I'm trying to set up to achieve, the success that I'm looking for, I take a step back. I take a breath and I relax, I breathe. A lot of people do that. However, what I would challenge you to do is take it to the next level, to think about the memory, that anchor memory that you had. In my case, how I felt when I was with my dad. Not only the memory, because we can all do that, but think about how you felt when you recall that particular memory. Did you feel happy? Did you feel safe? And bring those emotions back into the present moment to help you deal and repel those negative thoughts. So it could be lack of confidence, it could be having fear of something, or being not being sure about what to do next. Those new memories will actually help you not only feel more confident, but also feel more motivated to take action and move forward.
Wow. So, and if it's so true, positive memories, if being able to use them during a stressful or difficult time, allows us to get to access resources that we forget we have, and we just
Right.
don't use when we really could use them effectively.
Right.
So number three, what would be the third?
The third would be the power of letting go. What I mean by that is we will face challenges in life. That's just a given. It will happen. What's going to be different and what's going to change is the magnitude of that challenge. So it could be, well, you may have a fender bender one day, and the next day you could be dealing with a tree may have fallen in your backyard. So they will vary in difficulty. Now, when you face those challenges, and a good example would be if you lose someone you love, or if a relative in your family passes away. Yes, it is absolutely perfectly normal to grieve, and I recommend that. However you grieve, do that. But once you've done all of that, at some point in your life, you have to learn to move on, and to be able to move on, you have to learn to let go. And the power of letting go, what it allows you to do is to say, okay, it happened to me, I grieved, I learned from it, and now I'm letting go, because only by letting go will you be able to embrace your future. Otherwise, you'll be always tethered to your past, which is, being tethered to your past is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, in Africa, we have a saying that goes that if you don't know where you're going, go back to where you came from, meaning draw on your past to make you stronger. So draw on that experience to make you stronger, but let go of it enough to allow you to move forward and embrace the future. And when you do that, you can build the dream you want, the future you want, the life you want, whatever that goal may be in your life. So that power of letting go, it would be the third thing that I would recommend that you think about when you're facing any challenge.
Letting go is such a difficult thing for many people, for humans, I think, because I think there's a fear associated with it. And that is, if you let go, you'll also lose the good memories. And I think sometimes, actually, when you let go, the good memories come forward more. You release them and you can take those forward with you. You don't lose the good that was part of your life. What your thoughts
Exactly.
on that?
Yeah, no, that's true, because the our minds can only focus on something very intense for only so long. And if you think about it, when you are thinking about something that has a very powerful impact on yourself as a human being, on your emotions, it takes up a lot of real estate in our minds. And for us to be able to really focus on anything, you have to be able to not only be excited about what you're looking forward to, but also not be chained down by something. So letting go really is, that's why a lot of people would say, a lot of religions actually would say, you need to learn to forgive so you can move forward. Really, the wisdom behind that forgiving someone so you can move forward is that it allows you to let go so it's not taking up real estate in your mind all the time.
So true. If you want to move forward, you've got to free up your mental space, don't you?
Right,
So,
exactly.
number four, what's number four?
So number four would be to leverage your support system, and this is at the base of a lot of uh, a lot of therapies, a lot of ways to heal. Really, the in this world we weren't born alone. We would do ourselves justice and we'll move further if we realize that there are certain things that you can't do alone and you shouldn't do it alone. And there's a reason why we have all these national helplines, the national suicide helpline, the national, the depression helplines, and so on and so forth. And the reason we have these is that there is power in realizing that you are not alone. And we are social animals. We were born and we were bred and designed to actually care, to look and aspire to feeling sociable and being in social situations. So when you are faced with a challenge, it's important to realize that the quicker you can connect with other people, the quicker you will recover, because you are realizing that uh, there are other people not only who may have gone through the same thing and came out the other way, and they lived through it, and it gives you hope that you can get over it as well. But it's important to know that you can leverage people around you, even if it's one person, someone you don't know, if you're more comfortable, or someone that you can trust, a friend that lives close by, or maybe even in another state, someone you can talk to just get rid of this weight that this challenge or this heartache or hardship is causing on your soul. The expression, I when you do that, and when you are relieved of that thought of thinking that you are alone in the world, in your grief, or in your challenge, or in your poverty, or in your sadness, or in your indecision, whatever it may be, there's an expression that comes out of that, which is, I feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off my shoulder. So there is weight in you, there's weight in having to face a challenge alone, and that weight is heavier when you have to do it alone. The moment you speak to someone about your challenge, you literally start to feel that there is this virtual, these virtual weight that's being lifted off your shoulders. And that happens because when you share your hardship, you are also getting rid of its impact and its hold on you and on your spirit. So it's a good thing to leverage your community. To It could be just a friend, again, like I said, or it could just be making a phone call to someone who can help, or some organization that can help you. And if I were to tie this back to my own personal experience, when I lived in that refugee camp, I was particularly those first 2 days when I lived there, I was finding it difficult to actually get food to sustain me. It- And the only reason I couldn't do that was because there were so many people in the camp that when the food ration truck came, people were swarming the truck, and it was every man and every woman for him and herself. And at the time, I was very skinny, and I wasn't as strong and bulky as I am now. And the first few times I tried to get food, I was almost crushed every time. When I realized that I was going to starve if I didn't find a way to get around this obstacle and this challenge, what I did about that was to actually create a community, and in that I approached four other people who were older and stronger and faster, who lived in the camp as well, and I somehow convinced them to pool their resources with me, and to find a way to share, and that we would have more food if we did that. The moment I did that, the moment I looked for help and became part of a group or part of a team, if you will, if you want to draw a comparison to work. The moment I became part of a team, it became a lot easier. So all of a sudden, I have not only a support system, but I was eating well, well enough to survive, and I also had people who had my back, and I had their backs. So that's a good example of why it's important to seek out that support system.
It's so true, and I think, especially here, we tend to become so independent. We think if we can't solve the problem ourselves, there's something wrong with us. And you're absolutely right. We are created to be in community and to be in relationship.
Right.
And there's something very precious about that sharing and what you learn when you share with one another.
Right, right, exactly. And I know it's difficult because, especially in the United States, we are taught to be independent, to be individuals that can stand on our own. But there are things in life that you just shouldn't face alone. You should really seek support to make sure that you get through it easier.
So the fifth point would
Yeah.
be what?
Yeah. So the fifth is to learn to be nimble. And what I mean by that is be your ability to be flexible and to adapt. There is a story that I learned when I was younger. I went to a French school system in West Africa, and so there's a lot of French literature and French poetry that that is uh, that is inserted into the curriculum. And anyway, this story is the story of two different trees. One is a very sturdy tree that's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the other is a very small, very young, very skinny tree that that kind of moves when even when the slightest breeze blows. Anyway, the stronger tree was making fun of the smaller tree because of its size. And one day a hurricane came and the wind blew and blew, and the stronger tree was resisting the wind, and of course it got uprooted. But the smaller tree survived. And the reason why that tree survived is because when the wind blew, it was able to lean forwards and backwards and be flexible with the wind. And even though it would almost hit the ground, it because it was flexible, it didn't get uprooted. And there's a lesson in that is that the moral of the story is that you have to learn to be flexible because everything around you changes and will change. It's just a matter of time. If you think about, before 2007, so 2006, we didn't have the iPhone, right? Since 2007, what has happened since then? All the new social media channels, the new jobs that sprout out of the 2000 dot-com bus. So all of those changes around just around us. So as a human being, if you want to survive in our society, you have to learn to adapt. And the way to do that is you have to be flexible and be like water and run around the rocks in the streams to be able to continue your path. So what that could mean for someone in a professional setting or a leader is that if you notice that there are some trends that are changing in your industry or at work, maybe your company was acquired by another company, or there's new technology you need to learn. Don't be the person who is always saying no, 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 we've done it this way for 30 years. I am not going to learn something new now. If you stick to your guns, you are going to be an obsolete dinosaur, and that's it's not going to work in your favor. And the one of my favorite quotes is the one from Alvin Toffler that says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So that key portion there is to learn, which is what you've already always known, but at some point in your life, you have to relearn what you thought you knew. But also, at some point in your life, you have to unlearn some of your behaviors. So there's something that you're doing that's no longer relevant, that's stopping you from moving forward and reaching the goals you want to reach, that you need to completely unlearn. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is to unlearn something. So that's what I was talking about when I say to be flexible and to be nimble. So that's an important key aspect of being able to grow in life and to be more resilient.
So true. We can only hold so much data in our brains.
Right.
And at some point, we have to download if we're going to move ahead. And it's like carrying negative baggage. You have to get rid of it at some point. Otherwise, it's, like you said, too heavy. But the same is true with information and knowledge or your perception of the world.
Right.
If you can't alter it and you are carrying old images while you're trying to adapt to new, it can be exhausting.
Absolutely.
So, Umar, our time is almost up. And before we conclude, thoughts, things that we haven't talked about that you would like to share with our audience that you think is important for them to hear?
Yeah, I think it's we are going through some tough times right now, and I think everyone is feeling it. What I would say is, whenever there's a challenge, there's also opportunity. While it may be difficult to see it when you're going through the thick of it, there's always something positive that may come out of a challenge like this. And I would say that I absolutely understand what most of us are going through the challenging times, but just have use some of these tips that I shared, and it will, when you think about it, it would make sense and it would help you move forward with your life. If you're going through a tough time, it's okay to understand that it's not your fault. It's something that happens to everyone, and just learn that there are better days coming forward.
Better days, always better days. And it's
Right.
having that hope, isn't it? We thrive on the notion of hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Umar, thank you so much for being with us today. And for those of you who are listening, I will have information about Umar in the show notes so that you can be in contact with him. And if you have further questions, feel free to contact us and we will get you in contact with Umar. Umar, thank you so much for being with us. And those of you who are with us in Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.